In this video, we'll start to assemble our Sinufo mask. To do this, we'll be using the kit that came with these videos. We will also use the Move tool under the Transform tab, and the Scale tool also under the Transform tab. We'll also delete a couple of the parts that we don't need, so that way we clear up our space. Alright, let's get started then. The first step will be importing the African mask kit. We'll move our cursor to the top left corner on the 123D icon, and then select Import. Then on the menu that appeared, we'll click on Browse My Computer, and then we'll click the Browse button. And we'll go through our files and find the mask kit. There we go. Now that it's imported, we'll look at the different shapes and decide which face or head we would like to use. From our plans, we can eliminate a couple pretty fast. And that leaves us with this kind of pointy ovular one, which actually looks pretty good. I can now just click and drag it with my mouse cursor into place that I want. And now I'm going to zoom in really close and try to line up the center seam of our mask with a line on the grid. I'll do this so that way when we're using tools that snap to the grid, we can snap to the center of our mask. To do this, it would also help if we changed our view style to orthographic by clicking on the arrow on the bottom right of our view cube and selecting orthographic. I'll also go ahead and turn that back to perspective now that I'm done with that very close detailed work. Let's grab another feature that we think will work on this mask. From my drawing, this eyebrow looks kind of familiar, so let's try to use that. I'll click and drag it over to approximately the center of our mask, and then I'll use the Move tool under the Transform tab to move it about. I'll pull it up a little bit. Then I'll select the Scale tool from our Contextual tab at the bottom, since we have the brow selected. I'll specifically use the non-uniform option, so that way I can edit its X, Y, and Z scales. And I'll make it a little less wide and a little less tall. There we go, that's looking better. Now let's just make it overall smaller. I'll use a uniform scale to decrease it by about 20%. I'll use the Move tool to pull it up a little bit so that way it sticks out of our mask a little bit. Keep in mind you want these components to be embedded into the head of our mask so that way they're connecting. When we combine them later, they'll become one solid part, and then we'll have seams that we can actually add fillets and curvature to make it look like it's really part of the mask. However, for now, we'll keep them as individual components so we can move them up and down and left and right at our own discretion. For instance, I'll just pull this guy down using the Move tool so it's a little bit lower on our forehead. There we go. Okay, let's choose another component. I'm going to take a look at all the different eyes we have here. I'm automatically going to delete a couple because they really don't look quite right. So off the bat, these ones, and these ones don't really match. These two are kind of similar to what we're looking for. Maybe I'll just grab this one, and we'll try it out. We can always replace it later if we think the other one might work better. So I'll use the Move tool to maneuver it into place, and I'll pull it up. Notice I'm only going to do one eye because later we can mirror it across our center line to create the second eye. I'll make a couple of tweaks to its position with the Move tool, and I'll rotate it to the side so that way it matches the contour it's placed on a little bit better and sticks up further towards the center. The eye looks pretty good, so now it's time to choose a nose. I'll start off the bat removing a couple that I don't think will work at all. I'll also remove those eyes that we didn't use. Then I'll use the Move tool to move the one remaining nose into place. I'm going to be extra careful with this though to make sure that it's embedded into the face and not actually sticking up. Once again, we want to be able to combine this with a solid. If it's not touching it, it won't be able to be attached. So this is a pretty good start on the mask. Remember, we only made half of the eye, so that way we can always mirror it. Okay, so the next step now will be choosing a mouth. None of these mouths really look proper, so I'll just go ahead and delete them, and we'll have to create our own in the next step. Other than the mouth, these strange horn objects over here don't really look similar to the ones that are on the side of mine, except for this piece, so I'll keep that too. I'll just bring those closer so that I remember that they're there. In the next section, we'll create the parts that we don't have. For instance, a mouth.